All right, welcome everybody to the Jim Acosta Show. It's a meltdown Monday. It's also a Michael Monday, and Michael Cohen is here now. He's with me on screen, and we know where we have to begin, Michael, and that is it was another volatile day on Wall Street, more hemorrhaging in the markets after Trump said he wouldn't budge on tariffs. And you remember the old adage, oh, a president doesn't have that much to do with the economy. He can't have that much of an effect on the economy. That was before Donald Trump. And Michael, I mean, a couple places to start. I mean, one thing that's really under my skin. I mean, the Daily Beast reporting the president says he spent the weekend in between rounds of golf talking to tech leaders and politicians from around the world who were begging to renegotiate tariffs. Asked aboard Air Force One about the catastrophic market reaction to his announcement, Trump said, "quote Sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something." So I guess we're all
Well, I
taking
think if
our
I'm not
medicine right
mistaken,
now.
Jim, if I'm not mistaken, what he said is there are times that things go down and you have to take medicine to get them to go up again. I wasn't sure if he was talking about the economy or erectile dysfunction because none of this makes any sense at all. First of all,
Yeah.
what's he
The market
speaking
could
to
use a
tech
pill or two,
leaders?
but anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, what's he talking to tech leaders
Yeah,
about as it relates
that's
to
a good point.
tariffs? It just doesn't make any sense. Oh, NVIDIA and everybody else, they're all going to come and they're all going to build plants and so on. As if just because you say they're building plants. Then he said that they're actually already working on building a plant and so on.
Yeah.
That's really, you wouldn't
What is he
believe it.
talking?
Nobody would believe how fast that this is going. You can't get permits this fast. You can't
No.
architecturally draw out the facility this fast. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Nothing that he says is true. Nothing that he says makes any sense. In between the 14th and 15th hole of another senior championship golf match that, of course, he won,
Yeah.
right? Now he's speaking to world leaders. He's speaking to the top 4 or 5 tech companies. You
Yeah.
know, what do you do? Could you imagine he's on the phone, say, for example, with Prime Minister Starmer, and he
Yeah.
says, "Here, could you do me a favor? Just hold 1 second. I got to put this down. I just have to chip.
Yeah.
I'm only 50 yards out from the
Yeah.
pin in a
Sorry.
couple."
Sorry about your economy. I've got to slice one off into the woods here and put down a par. He's slapping tariffs on just about every country around the world, even small islands only inhabited by penguins. But forget the penguin. We're dealing with the Joker on this one. JP Morgan's chief executive, Jamie Dimon, as reported in the New York Times and other outlets, said this, Michael. The recent tariffs will likely increase inflation and are causing many to consider a greater probability of a recession. That's what the JP Morgan chief executive said in his annual letter to shareholders. Michael, when Trump came into office, we weren't talking about a recession. There was no recession on the horizon.
To the contrary, Jim,
Yeah,
they actually gave Biden, whatever you want to say about
yeah,
Joe Biden,
yeah,
all the top economists, including the Jamie Dimons of the world, the Goldman Sachses, the Blackstones, the BlackRocks, the
yeah,
Citadels, every single one of them said, interestingly enough, we were successful in staving off a recession.
yeah.
Somehow or
We
another,
had a
it
soft
happened.
landing.
That's right. We're
Yeah,
76 days into the new administration, and all of a sudden, forget about what JP Morgan is saying. Goldman Sachs,
yep,
who has historically been fantastic predictors of situations like this, they, for the second time now in a
yeah,
period of 7 days, have changed their analysis on the predictability of a recession. They went from 35% to now 45% that we
unbelievable.
are going to have a recession.
Yeah.
That is not good news to any of the people that are with us right now.
Well, it looks like the Dow is going to be down 349 points. The Nasdaq is up slightly, but Michael, this morning when the markets opened, it was frightening. It was frightening when the markets opened this morning. It was going down about 1,000 points or whatever, and there was this rumor that went around that Trump was considering a pause in the tariffs. This is according to the Associated Press. That briefly lifted markets earlier this morning. Michael, you and I were both watching this because we talked about this earlier on the phone. The markets dropped dramatically. Then they popped back up because of this rumor that was going around that Trump was going to pause the tariffs. And then reporters came out on the North Lawn of the White House and said, no, 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 we just checked with our sources. That did not happen. And then the market sank again. That kind of volatility, it must be freaking people out, especially
Well,
where you are in New York. Yeah.
it shows you two things.
Yeah.
First and foremost, that the entire country is on edge.
Yeah.
And you know that because the second thing is if they're willing to just take some sort of a rumor that popped up on the
Crazy.
internet sphere
Yeah.
and then run with it, and it shot the market up like 700 points
Exactly.
because the market right now is starving for some sensibility, for a
Yep.
pause, so that they can figure out what exactly is and what is not a policy. We
Yeah.
don't have a policy on these
No.
tariffs.
No,
There's
we
no
don't.
policy. There's just tariffs. So, I kind of compare this whole thing to imagine Trump playing baseball, which he did when he was in high school. I had met,
Yeah.
actually, by coincidence, many, many years ago, I met his baseball coach,
Oh,
who said
wow.
he was actually a pretty decent ball player.
Yeah.
So
So is
hypothetically,
Fidel Castro, but anyway, go ahead.
well,
Yeah.
that's also true. So hypothetically, right, he gets put in one game out
Yeah.
of the whole season. And, he manages to get a base hit. He starts running around telling everybody he bats 1,000.
It's like
Right?
this golf game.
That's the insanity of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
I was watching just before coming on to the show with you for Michael Monday, Jim. I was
Yeah.
watching this shit show. There's no other way to describe it. This
Yeah.
shit show that is taking place right now
Yeah.
in the Oval Office between Trump and Bibi Netanyahu.
Oh, I was going to get into that. I mean, uh, Trump has Bibi Netanyahu at the White House, the Israeli prime minister. And I mean, this is what's incredible about this. Trump is planning 17% tariffs on imports coming from Israel. Netanyahu is over at the White House, obviously, to try to talk Trump out of that. But NBC reports, Michael, that the White House has canceled a planned news conference that Trump was supposed to have with Netanyahu this afternoon. Instead, Trump is planning to take questions from reporters in the Oval Office. That's where the White House can control which reporters go into the Oval Office. That means no pesky questions on the economy from the full White House press corps and Israeli journalists. Michael, you know all too well, when they're canceling press conferences, that ain't good.
No, the
Yeah.
old expression, if you can't, dazzle them with your brilliance, baffle them with your bullshit. As I'm listening to this nonsense, this bullshit that's taking place right now in the
Yep.
Oval Office, I have never heard anybody praise themselves. And again,
It's
I
incredible.
was with Trump since 2005, 2006. We're talking about almost, we're talking about a long time, almost,
Yeah.
18 years now. I have never heard him praise himself more about everything. Okay, Joe Biden, bad. Donald Trump, good. In
This is
fact, he even went so far as to praise himself for the
Yep.
topic of turning the Gaza Strip into a high end residential real estate play.
Yeah.
Talking about how everybody in the world now is talking about it and saying, why didn't we think of this? All right,
Yeah.
that we think this is a great idea. The other night I was out for dinner with friends of mine, and she happens to be Palestinian, been friends
Yeah.
of mine since 1984. And I can tell you she ain't happy. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, you're talking about 170 square miles. You have oceanfront property that
Yeah.
Jared wants to turn into high-end condominiums.
Yeah.
This is not what one would call peace, nor do I think this would ultimately inure to Israel's benefit,
Yeah.
because all you're doing is making this area into a target area. You can't take
Yeah.
the Palestinian people, the Gazans, move them out, tell Egypt or Jordan that
Yeah.
you have to take them, and then not have them come back after all the debris and all the damage is corrected. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I
America
mean,
didn't do that to Germany.
no, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at that, and I mean, the thing that puzzles me the most. I mean, obviously, the way Trump fantasizes about this stuff, it's ludicrous. It's not attached to reality in any way, shape, or form. It's just stuff that he just pulls out of his backside, and he presents it as an idea to the world, puts it on Truth Social. The thing that I also find kind of unbelievable in all of this is that I thought Trump and Netanyahu had a pretty decent relationship. And then for Trump to slap tariffs on, he's slapping tariffs on Israel, but not Russia. I mean, that to
Jim,
me,
Jim, Jim. He slapped tariffs on penguins, but not Moscow. If that in and of itself doesn't tell
yeah,
you how dysfunctional this group of idiots that are surrounding him, the enablers,
yeah.
if this doesn't tell you how inept that they are,
Yeah,
that they
where the
have
hell did they
no
get the
idea what they're
penguins?
talking
We got to talk about the penguins. Where the hell did they get the penguins? Does anybody know where they got the penguins from? I think over the weekend, Margaret Brennan on CBS Face the Nation asked if this was an AI designed thing that they, that they put it into some computer program and it spit out all of these different countries and territories. I was in Norway over the weekend. I went to a conference there, a journalism conference, and the people there, I will tell you, could not be more terrified as to what is going on right now. They're not just terrified about Russia and the fact that Trump is talking about invading Greenland. They're worried about these tariffs. They're worried about what it's going to do to the global economy. But the fucking penguins, I mean, honestly, that is the thing that is just baffling
So there are
everybody.
two
And it
islands, just so
reeks of
that
total
just
incompetence.
yeah, so just so that our viewers understand what we're talking about, there are two islands. One
Yeah.
is called the Heard Islands, the other is called McDonald Island. All right.
Yeah.
And they
You'd think he
are
would spare
uninhabited.
McDonald's. But anyway, go ahead.
Right. No, Ronald doesn't live there. Right. You have these two islands that are uninhabited. The only inhabitants of that island are actually penguins. It's in
Yeah.
Antarctica, obviously. And for whatever the reason is, and nobody in the White House can give an answer.
Yeah.
And if you ask Caroline Levitt, right, she'll turn around and she'll tell you
Oh,
that
God.
the, this is
Is
the
is she
most.
the person to have out at the podium right now during a financial, I mean, crisis that we're dealing with right now? I mean, these are not their best and their brightest. I'm sorry, they're just not. And I mean, she's the kind of person who could go out there and utter something and make the markets tank even more.
Well, that's definitively true, but
Yeah,
her responses are so measured, they're so calculated because it's a regurgitation of the same lines over and over and over again.
yeah,
President Trump is the smartest president ever. He knows exactly what he's doing. It doesn't make a difference that he's basically talking about the entire region, not specifically the Heard or the McDonald Island. All right. That this is just you, Jim Acosta, and you, Michael Cohen, and the left wing Soros funded media that is just trying to, denigrate and disparage this
yeah,
president who is doing historic things. I mean, this is the shit that she's saying, and she's
yeah,
good at it because
yeah,
she comes at you with this anger and she goes, look straight into the camera with a
yeah.
smile on her face. And she's basically spewing the same thing, the same lines
Yeah.
over and over, just in different contexts.
Yeah, I mean, she is an unusually good liar. And I will say at that age, I mean, like, as I've said before on this show, she's going places in Trump world. When you're at that age and you lie that well, it's sort of like Tom Brady winning Super Bowls at an early age. And Michael, I mean, here's the other thing that I mean is astonishing to me is in the middle of all this, Trump is doubling down on Truth Social. I saw you writing about this, so I wanted to ask you about this. He said his message to Republicans: "Don't be a panikin." Which I mean, he's kind of running out of good material, so he's just sort of like these are like the B side insults. He says the new party based on weak and stupid people. Be strong, be courageous, and patient, and greatness will be the result. You know Donald Trump. You've known him a long time. He is Mr. Double Down. He's not going to back off of this, is he?
Not a chance. And
Yeah,
I kept hearing on television from all of these pundits, from all the various networks, CNN,
yeah,
MSNBC, ABC, and so on, that Trump is now taking phone calls and that they're trying to work through this. And I turned around and I called up a couple of them and I said, "You're wrong. Let me be very clear.
Yep.
Trump is like a bull that doesn't want to move. He's dug his back legs into the ground, and you could drag him with a fucking tractor. All right,
Right.
a bulldozer. It doesn't make a difference. He is not
He's not going to
changing
do
his
it.
mind. He wants total capitulation from everybody. He
Yeah.
wants to be the bully of the world to
Yeah.
turn and say, I told the EU, this is what I want,
And
and the EU did it.
this
I
is,
told Italy, this is what I want, and Italy did what I said. I
yeah,
told France what I want, and he can go on and on and on. The only one he doesn't want to have to say that to, of course, is Russia.
is
Now,
Vladimir Putin,
it
because
is
he can't do
interesting.
that.
No,
Because the
it,
the dynamic is in the reverse. When they tell him to jump, he says how high. So, Michael, I wanted to hit the pause button because I think you hit on exactly the right idea here as to what the situation. He wants these countries coming to him. And this is what I was saying to the folks in Norway over the weekend. He wants these countries to come to him on hand and knee and beg for some kind of, carve out exception, whatever you want to do. You have the EU, you have the Europeans coming and saying, let's have a zero tariff free trade agreement, that kind of a thing. He wants to look like the dear leader who is showing mercy upon his subjects. He wants to be Napoleon. He wants to be Caesar in all of this. And the global markets are teetering on the edge.
So here's the problem. All right, let's start to talk amongst ourselves. And by the way, we have like 5,000 people with us, which
Yeah.
I would say many people would say that that's great. I would like to ask each and every one
I
of you
want it to go.
for
Yeah.
next Michael Monday. All right, no bullshit for next
Yeah.
for next week's show. We want to have 50,000 people. And then after that, just tell two people, each and every one of you, tell two people to join us so that they too get educated. Everybody thinks they know, but they actually
Yeah.
don't. All right,
Yeah.
stay with us, build the community so that when we do other things, like when Jim and I go and we start doing town halls, which we're going to get
Hey,
to in
let's
a
talk
minute.
about it. Let's talk. You
All right,
brought it up. We're
the
looking at
important
next
thing is
Tuesday,
that
right? Up in New
that's correct.
York. We're talking about it next Tuesday up in New York. Michael Monday is going to become Michael Tuesday, but we're going to have a lot of other friends with us. We're working on our list of friends who are going to be there with us, but it's going to be at the 555 Theater. Do I have that right?
You
In
do, but
Midtown
it's going to be
Manhattan.
live streamed as well, which of course, how many, the theater's only, I think, only seats like 160 people. And so
Yeah.
everybody else, it's going to be live streamed for the whole world to watch. And I
Yeah.
suspect, that there's going to be many millions of people tuning into it
We're going to get our
because
audience there.
it's going to be a lot of very, very well known people
Yeah.
who most of you absolutely know. We're not sure at the time yet. Just stay tuned to both
Stay tuned.
the Jim
This is
Acosta
called a
show and,
tease.
and Michael and my on my Substack. And we're going to constantly be updating you as more information comes together. But then Jim
Yeah.
and I are going to take this show on the road. We also want to go to ruby red districts because
Yeah.
it's imperative that we
Do we?
reach back out to
No,
these
I'm kidding. We
people
do. We will. Yeah.
and we explain to them.
Yeah.
This is not about whether you have an R or a D next to your name. I don't care. This is
Yeah.
all about the Constitution. It's about our democratic republic. It's about what we want to leave for our
Yeah.
children, grandchildren, and future generations to come. Do you want to leave an autocracy or do you want to
Yeah.
leave a democracy? If you're okay with this volatility, then this isn't the place for you to engage
Yeah.
in legitimate dialogue. I want to be there to tell you, you
Yeah.
don't know Donald Trump. In fact, just because you went to one rally doesn't make you, as they would say in Yiddish, a Talmud Chacham, right? A genius amongst geniuses, knowing the guy. I
Yeah.
sat with him for 15 years. I
No, I
can tell
know. I
you
know.
what's going on here. And I'm going to go one step further here. All
Let's
right?
do. Yeah. Go for it.
The important thing is that we build the community to ensure that come the midterm elections, that our community is so big, so humongous, that there is no doubt that we
Yeah.
will be able to restore law and order and
Yeah.
sensibility to this government, which right now is running amok.
Yeah, well, and I tell you, I'm so glad that you pitched it the way you did because that's the way I feel about it too. You know, we can't let our country go down the tubes, Michael, and I think that's where you and I are on the same page in a big way. And a lot of the guests that we're talking about are of the same mindset. And so it's going to be exciting. We're going to start rolling out some details slowly but surely during the week. But you got your little appetizer right there as to what's going to be coming next week when Michael and I do this. Now, I do want to talk about some other stuff because there was that big hands off protest that we saw over the weekend in New York and DC and a lot of other cities around the country. Michael, I want to get your impression of that. But we do have some breaking news. The U.S. does not have to return a Maryland man who was accidentally deported to El Salvador to U.S. soil by midnight. The Supreme Court ruled this just a little while ago in an administrative stay, according to NBC News, that temporarily pauses a judge's previous order. This has to do with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Michael, this story has been on my mind because it just breaks my heart what they did to this guy.
Really?
He got a family.
That's on your mind? I have been
Yeah,
warning. I
yeah,
have been warning every show that I went on,
yeah,
every journalist that I spoke to, every podcast on my Mea Culpa podcast or on my Substack or my Instagram, Michael Cohen
yeah,
Show. I have been warning everyone that has listened that what Donald Trump did to me going back,
yep,
right, in the unconstitutional remand was just a litmus test in what they intend to do if in fact he came back to power, which we
yeah.
all know, of course, he did.
They'll start
So,
disappearing people. They'll start
correct.
disappearing. Yeah,
I'll tell you what my next big concern is. My next big concern is he's even engaging in conversation of US citizens who are currently incarcerated, shipping them off to the same Venezuelan prisons that
yeah,
they have the El Salvadorians in.
yeah. El
This is,
Salvadorans, yeah. The Venezuelans in the El Salvadoran
I'm
prison.
sorry, I have it
Yeah,
backwards. The
yeah,
Venezuelans in the El Salvadorian
yeah,
prison. Jim, let me tell you the danger of something like this.
yeah.
When you have somebody who doesn't believe in the Constitution,
That's
when you
it.
have
That's
you
it.
have people who are willing to weaponize the Department of Justice to go against the critics, what happens when you're walking down the street? And
Yeah,
all of a sudden, next thing you know, six people, like what they did to me over at 500 Pearl Street, six people stop you in the street, like they did to that young girl,
yeah,
right from Tufts University, the
yep,
journalist.
yep,
And then they bag you, tag you, throw you in the back of the Sprinter. Next thing you know, you're not even in Boston anymore. They shipped you off to Louisiana where they have a favorable court. Now all of a
yeah.
sudden you are in custody. You are
It's scary.
technically
It's
and they
absolutely
and they
scary.
ship you off to El Salvador.
Yeah. No,
But
it's
you're a
right.
US citizen and you say this is
Yeah.
fundamentally unconstitutional.
Well, this guy was not
And then you
supposed to be
got the
deported.
Supreme Court turning around and
Yeah.
saying, no,
It,
it's an administrative proceeding. Let me
yeah.
tell you how long administrative proceedings go. First, it
Yeah.
starts off with, let's call it like a BP-8. That's where you
Yeah.
file it. They have 30 days to respond. Then you file a BP-9 if that comes back successfully, and then a 10, an 11, and a 12. Ultimately, it takes you at more than a year to a year
Yeah.
and a half before which you're able to even get the right to file a habeas corpus petition. You could do 18 months in that hellhole.
Yeah. Well, and apparently this man has a son who is autistic. I was talking to the viewers about that last week. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. Michael, let's talk about the hands-off rallies because I was out of the country. I don't know if you were watching any of this. I was
Oh, I
watching it
watched
from
it.
overseas, and it was pretty remarkable. And this all goes back to what I've been talking about for weeks, the great American pushback. There are people who are poo-pooing this idea that there would ever be a resistance or something like the resistance or that people would stand up. They just thought the smart people in Washington and the press thought that folks would just permanently be in the fetal position. That has not been the case. You've seen people get pissed off at these town halls, and now you saw the hands-off rallies take place at these cities all across the country over the weekend. And it gave everybody, I think, a real shot in the arm to see folks out there taking to the streets, the good old patriotic, old-fashioned American, take it to the streets and let Trump know what they think. And I mean, this is only the beginning, it seems to me.
Yeah, but Jim, here's the problem. he wasn't thinking about the hands-off protests. He was
Yeah.
thinking about his next drive and his next chip and his
That's
next
true.
senior
That's
club
true.
championship win. I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
He heard it. He doesn't give a shit. He
Yeah.
truly doesn't. He turns around and
Well,
he
that
says,
is you're right in that I think there's an element to this that maybe you and I should talk about. Maybe there's not enough time today, but we can talk about it a little bit today, talk about it next time. I like saving topics that we can talk about for next time. This I don't give a shit mindset because you've studied Trump longer than I have, but I'm picking up on this. I don't think he cares if he wrecks the economy. I don't think he cares if he tears up the Constitution. I don't think he cares who gets sent to El Salvador. He is very much in I don't give a shit mode. Going to play golf this weekend? Are you kidding me? With the
the
markets
world
crashing the
is
way that they're
crumbling,
crashing?
the global economy is crashing.
Yeah.
America's economy, we lost $7 trillion in market value. My friends, I want to say that number again so it sinks into people's heads. We lost $7 trillion of
Yeah.
market value.
That's right.
There is no policy, there's just acts. There's just executive orders and actions, one after the other after the other. None of them are thought out. Listen, if you don't have to like the president's policy,
Yeah.
people didn't like the Affordable Care Act under
Yeah.
Obama. Some people did, right?
Yeah.
Every president has the right to their agenda, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. However, there has to be a policy put forth so that you can determine whether you do like it or you don't,
Yeah.
whether it's constitutional or it's not, whether it's violative of the Separation of Powers Act or not. That's the
Yeah.
problem here. There's nothing here but Donald telling you and Caroline Levitt parroting and then Lutnick
Yeah.
parroting and Besson parroting. Trump is a smart businessman. He is the greatest negotiator in the history of the world. Have faith in this MAGA idea. And so then you say, yeah, I'm not really into that bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I'm really not into somebody telling me how great it's going to be
Why
when
is that,
every
Michael? Why is that? Why is it that the people around him, and you've seen this happen multiple times with multiple teams of people, and now this is the new, the Scott Bessent, the Howard Lutnicks, this is the new team of people that get sucked into this trance. What is it that he casts? People still think that it's cool that he was on The Apprentice 20 goddamn years ago.
it's
What
not The
is it
Apprentice.
about that? What is
It's
it?
it's not The Apprentice. It's a group of individuals who have rage. They have
Mhm.
rage against the government. They have rage against how they feel that they have been silenced and that their superiority has now been compromised as a result of what they want to call woke policy or woke ideology.
Yeah.
Let me call this for what it is.
Yeah.
This is white supremacy ideology. These are individuals that think because you are white and you are a male, that makes you better than a black female or a Hispanic female or
But
a black.
we had a chance to get a black. We had Kamala Harris. This would not be happening right now if Kamala Harris had been elected president.
That's not
You
the
know,
point. But that's not the point. The point is that there is a plurality of Americans that still have that racist, sexist, misogynistic, the xenophobic, the homophobic,
you're
Islamophobic,
right. You're
transphobic,
right. You're right.
anti-Semitic ideology. And
You're right.
we all thought that those days were in our past. They're
Yeah.
not. Maybe they were suppressed, but now all of a sudden you have,
Yeah.
especially in these ruby red districts, where they turn around, they were like, wait. Are
Yeah.
you telling me that the mayor of our town is going to be a young black woman? Right?
Yeah.
That's woke. That's
Yeah,
only.
Kamala Harris predicted that this was going to happen during the campaign multiple times, said that if these tariffs go into place, it will cause a recession. And I love that all of these clips of Kamala Harris are coming back. She was absolutely right about this. And all of the people, I mean, I talked about this on my old show. You and I have talked about this multiple times. He is hooked on this idea that these tariffs are going to solve these global economic issues that have been around for a generation. I'm sure I can't imagine how many times you heard this back in the day when you were working with him.
Yeah. So let me first of all, he was not a big tariff guy like he keeps talking about. Oh, for
Oh,
35
interesting.
years I've been
Yeah.
talking about tariff. He didn't even know what a tariff was 35 years ago. All right. This is all planted into his brain by the
Yeah.
Stephen Millers, by the Project 2025.
Peter
But I want
Navarro.
to share. I want to share before I go. All
Yeah.
right. I want to share this concept on this global tariff, this shoot yourself in the foot and then blame the gun manufacturer for it. This
Yeah.
is not going to work. And let me explain to you why. Because the world is global now, and this
Yeah.
globalization of the economy, of the global economy. Here's what's happening right now. They're all turning around. They're saying Trump is, as we have all known,
Yeah.
unpredictable. That could have been a strength and a benefit, but not when you take it to the extent that he has taken it. So what are they doing? Guys like Keir Starmer, right,
Yeah.
and others have gotten together, and they are now sourcing items that they were buying from America elsewhere. There is
Yeah.
nothing that is manufactured or grown in America that
Yeah.
you
I mean,
cannot buy.
I was looking at some stories over the weekend. If you want to go and buy an iPhone, you might want to go do it fast because they're talking about iPhones going up 60% in price. I mean, folks, there are lots of things that are very critical to our economy that are about to go up big time in these coming days. And
So Jim, you have all these crazy people, these MAGA
and he's not going to be able to fix
morons.
that. Yeah.
No, but you have all these MAGA morons who are like, yeah, Trump is king, Trump 2028, and they go on and on and on.
Yeah.
When was the last time that you know somebody who woke up first thing in the morning and saying, fuck yeah, I want to spend more, 60% more for my iPhone. I want
Yeah.
all my expenses
Yeah.
to
Don't
go
don't
up.
drop that iPhone. Make sure you got a screen protector. Make sure
Yeah,
you got a
that's for
case.
sure. Put it
Don't
in,
do that.
put it into like a steel case, right? I mean, but
You
this is the
better.
problem. They are now, all of our
Yeah.
global trading partners are out there, and they are now figuring out how to purchase items elsewhere that they were buying from America. And the
Yeah.
only ones that are going to suffer are going to be Americans.
Yeah.
I just want to say
Yes.
one last thing here.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't understand the concept of a numerator and a denominator.
No.
To
Yeah.
him, like I was explaining with the baseball, right now he's batting 1,000, but he got on base once the entire season, and the only
Yeah.
time that he played. Let me be clear here. The same concept. He has one piece of sand, and he calls that the beach. That's
Yeah.
not how it works,
Yeah.
right? You have to look at the totality. He takes one, so they have one person on this right wing conservative media ecosphere who
Yeah.
says he's a farmer and that he's thrilled with Trump imposing
Yeah.
tariffs
Oh, the
because the
farmers.
EU won't take our chickens or our
Yeah.
beef because of the hormones that we
Yeah.
use, or that they won't accept our cars. By the way, the reason why, for example, Italy doesn't take American cars, they're too fucking big. The streets are small.
Yeah. You
You
can't drive a
can't fit a
Suburban through.
suburban on the street.
You can't drive a Suburban down the Amalfi Coast. You're absolutely Michael. All right, so we're talking about here's the tease. This is your appetizer. Next Tuesday, Michael and I are talking about doing a town hall in Midtown Manhattan. There are details to come. I don't want to give them right now. I just got a text from Michael Fanone. We believe Michael Fanone will be involved in this. So it'll be a double Michael town hall. But I'm
Don
just
Lemon also said that he's
we're
in.
gonna wet. We're
Joy
gonna wet.
Reid said that if we can, she's in. I have
This
like
is
11 to 12 people. Everybody knows all these folks. Plus, you get Jim and myself on top of everything.
I mean, it's like we should charge money for this, but I don't know if we will. But Michael, great to see you. Great Michael Monday as always. We're still hammering out the details, and we'll get some more stuff out there soon. Thank you, Michael. Good to see you, my
Great
friend.
day. By the way, just tell everybody to please subscribe to my Substack
Don't
too.
forget. That's right.
Thank
Michael's on Substack. He's the best. Michael Monday, everybody. Michael, big round of applause. Thank you, sir.
thank you, Jim.
Good to see you, buddy. Okay.
Hmm.
That is the great Michael Cohen, the man, the myth, the legend. I'm bringing in Matt Lewis now, as I was saying earlier on in my posts. Matt is somebody who's been observing the political scene for some time now. He's got a great political mind. What I really like about Matt is that he has come from the conservative viewpoint in the past. Now, let's just see here. Hang on. I'm using the Substack machine, so bear with me, everybody. You've heard me talk about the Substack machine. It is sometimes temperamental. It is sometimes something that is a bit unwieldy. The Substack machine thinks I want to type in Matthews. I'm not typing in Matthews. I'm typing in Matt Lewis. Let's see here. Stand by, everybody. Stand by. Maybe if I do it this way. But Michael Monday, always a pleasure to have Michael Monday on. Mainly because, well, first of all, I can just let Michael talk, and he will take over the show and do just a gangbusters of a job doing that. Hang on a second. Is Matt Lewis going to get in here or what? What's happening here? Matt Lewis. Donde está Matt Lewis? Hang on here, folks. I don't want to screw this up. We'll end up bringing in somebody who is not Matt Lewis. But Matt is great on this because he can also talk about how Republicans have been, how should we put this, a bit weak in the knees in terms of challenging Donald Trump on all this. Let's see here. That's definitely not Matt. Hang on, everybody. Aha. Matt is texting me. It's Matt K. Lewis. That's why it's not working. Stand by, everybody. There he is. Okay, that's what it is. But see, this is what happens. As I've often said on this program, don't let the correspondent touch the equipment. Don't let the anchor touch the equipment. There's Matt Lewis right there. So when I operate the Substack machine, sometimes good things happen, and sometimes there's a little bit of tap dancing. You sort of need like the Jeopardy music or something like that in the interim. But Matt, good to see you.
It is good to be here. I have to tell you, I'm like nervous. Like if I went on, cable news, I'm not nervous, but it's my first time doing like Substack Live. I'm like literally nervous here.
Well,
It's
I
crazy.
knew being a young man about my age, technically savvy enough, you would probably be able to get your iPhone to work to get the damn thing working. And so that's my special sauce. I try to find folks who I'm reasonably confident can get the Substack machine to work on their phone. And then I left out your middle initial K. That is why I was like pulling up Chris Matthews or something. Chris would be great, but I wanted to get Matt Lewis. Matt, how the hell are you?
Hey man, I'm doing amazing. I mean, despite the fact that I'm nervous right now. I just love Substack. I love YouTube,
Yeah,
and I think there's so much cool stuff happening right now, and that people, I mean,
it's
yeah, there's
amazing.
hard. The world is falling apart, and America is in dire straits. But we get to do this, and
Yeah,
when the backlash comes, I think that it's going to be partly because we have the ability to communicate to great folks
absolutely.
out there via
No, and
Substack.
I describe it as sort of democratizing the process, bringing the people in. I mean, you can see one of the cool things about this is that you can see people chatting and putting in their messages and sending their hearts and so on. And we love all of that. But it's also about just bringing people in. I mean, there have been times when I've been hosting this show and I'll see a comment or a question. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a better question than what I was going to ask. But Matt, and it's been a while since you and I have spoken, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is there have been times in the past, and I may have mischaracterized things when I was setting you up and also trying to bring you in the show, that you have been kind of a conservative or brought sort of Republican views to the table and so on. And I'm curious where you are now. Do you still consider yourself a Republican? Are you so pissed off that you're like, screw this? Or you're like, damn it, I'll always be a Republican. I care about it. Or are you like, I'm just a conservative, maybe small c conservative. Where are you
Yeah.
right now in all of this? And
Well, it's
I'll,
an identity
yeah,
crisis, but it's a great
yeah,
question. Look, I live in West Virginia. I'm sitting in
yeah.
West Virginia right now. I'm from Western Maryland. My dad was a prison guard for 30 years.
Wow.
Literally, he volunteered to go to jail for 3 decades so I could get paid to write about politics and talk about politics. So I
It's a
feel
good dad.
blessed. It was a great dad. And one of my first memories, to honestly, is my dad taking me to the polls in 1980 when he voted for Ronald Reagan and
Yeah.
explaining to me why it was so important. And to
Hmm.
be honest with you, all of those reasons are the reasons that I'm against Donald Trump. It really
Yeah.
is. Look, I mean, tariffs were not at the top of the list of things I cared about in 1980. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you can see that video of Ronald Reagan talking about why
Yes.
tariffs are stupid. He did have some very targeted tariffs, but he was vehemently opposed to this worldview that Donald Trump is now advocating about tariffs being great. And so I will say
Yeah.
this, Jim. I believe all, not everything, but I didn't mention I worked for Tucker Carlson at the Daily Caller for 6 years,
Wow.
six
Wow.
years. And by the way, it was a great job, and he was
Yeah.
awesome to work with. Even though I completely disagree with pretty much everything
Yeah.
he stands for
Well,
today.
how did the Kool-Aid taste when I'm just joking?
Hey man, I'm watching that movie right now, that TV show right now about the cool. I don't know if have you seen this?
No, I have not seen it.
Seth Rogen has a new Apple TV show right now,
Oh, yes.
and one of the things that he's tasked with is making a movie called Kool-Aid. So
Holy shit.
maybe that could be my movie about my days at the Daily Caller.
So let me ask you this. A couple of things. One is, I mean, Reagan kind of began the Republican orthodoxy, I believe, on tariffs. I mean, it seems that that was the case. The one that is carried basically until the time of Donald Trump. A couple of things to talk about. One is, it's amazing to me how Republicans have sort of turned tail on this. And now they're just sort of all in on Donald Trump. I mean, earlier today, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, Republican from Louisiana, said, we're going to give Trump the runway to deal with this and do what he wants to do with these tariffs. I mean, markets be damned.
And
I
it's not just it's Congress who have that attitude, but you will see this echoed on Fox News all over the place. There's a ton of clips of allegedly smart political commentators who just say we just got to trust in President Trump and hope he
Yeah,
knows what's best. I mean, that's the philosophy. It's like dear leader has said this is a good idea,
yeah,
therefore whatever. I have no say in it. I have no political philosophy. I cannot have an opinion that disagrees. Look, I would say, yes, this does go back to Reagan, but it goes back, I think, even before Reagan. I would say that Donald Trump, whether it comes to his worldview in terms of foreign policy or whether it's protectionism and tariffs, is
yeah,
essentially rejecting the entire post World War II American
yes,
led consensus. And that is really what it is. He
that
wants to
is.
return to an era, whether it's like the 1890s or the 1930s. He wants to return to the era before we learned all these lessons. I think after the Great Depression and World War II, it's
Yeah,
reasonable that we would sort of take a look around, say we made maybe we need to fix these
yeah.
things. Here's some potential problems we need to look out for. Let's tweak some things. We did that to our credit, and Donald Trump is now upending all of it across the
Yeah,
board.
yeah, no, and there's no question about it. I mean, and it's funny that you mentioned the Great Depression and World War II because I mean, the way people are talking these days, we might be heading towards another Great Depression or World War III because of a lot of Trump's actions. I mean, look what's taking place in Ukraine and Trump turning his back on Volodymyr Zelensky. And then, I mean, this is Pershing Square Capital CEO Bill Ackman, a vocal Trump backer, saying, and this is according to Yahoo News Finance, saying that these tariffs may bring about a self-induced economic nuclear winter.
Yeah,
that, is,
and this is a
that
guy who I think supported Donald
he
Trump,
did is very vocal
right?
Trump backer. Very again,
Yeah.
these aren't people who are like, you know, uh, the sky is falling on certain networks and that sort of thing. No, this is a vocal Trump backer, and this is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Hasn't
Yeah.
he's been critical of this?
Well, so this, first of all, on one hand, I feel like we have to welcome converts or people who are at least being intellectually honest today. On the other
Yeah,
hand, this really pisses me off, okay? Because everything Donald Trump is doing was utterly predictable. I
yeah,
mean, not the details, but he was always for tariffs. Hell, he said during the election that he was going to use tariffs to pay for childcare and to restore
that's
the auto
right.
industry
I
in
forgot
America.
about that.
So I don't know how you're going to pay for childcare unless you have pretty onerous tariffs. So,
Yeah,
look, and I've heard other people. Adam Kinzinger's made this point. Chuck Todd has made this point. So I'm just regurgitating or reiterating something that they said, but I think it's so
yeah,
true. All of these people who today are sort of crying, like I was wrong about Trump, or trying to talk him out of what he's doing now. They
yeah.
didn't say a damn thing
They didn't.
When Donald Trump was doing all the other bad stuff, including, supporting Russia over Ukraine. Um, they didn't say anything when Russia was kidnapping, kids. When Donald Trump was, you name it, attacking
Yeah,
Zelensky and the Oval Office. They were perfectly okay with that. They don't care
yeah,
about character. They don't care about foreign policy. The only thing they care about is when it hits them in their pocketbook. But the
Yeah.
problem is, if you have a lack of character, if you're chaotic and capricious, that's not just that's just not just focused on tariffs. Like what is happening now with tariffs, I think is indicative of what Donald Trump is doing writ large in the entire administration. It's just that there's no stock ticker showing us, the fallout in terms of our America's prestige around the globe.
Well, you're so right about that. And I was thinking about, should I write a Substack? I mean, I did something over the weekend about how his lies always come at a high price, whether it's COVID, whether it's the January 6th, and now it's the market meltdown that we're all living through right now. He lies and lies and lies. And you're absolutely right. Leaders in the Republican Party have not only been fully comfortable with his behavior on Ukraine, they've been fully comfortable with all of his moral failings and just being an outright liar on so many things over the years. But he's fenced himself in on these tariffs. And you said this in a tweet earlier this morning that Trump's in a trap, and it's one he's built himself brick by tariff brick. And this goes right into what we were seeing earlier this morning for the folks who weren't watching at the top of this program, when there was this rumor that was going around, ended up being false, that Trump might pause tariffs for 90 days. And then the reporters came out of the White House and said, no, that's not the case. Trump is saying this is fake news and so on. And it goes to where Trump is in a box right now. He's painted himself into a corner on this.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, the fact that people would see a tweet, which I think very well could have been like a pump and dump type situation, right?
Yes. Yes.
I could go on Twitter right now and say, I'm hearing that Donald Trump is backing away, and
Yep.
then sell my stock, at the high point. And then it will fall up pretty much immediately when people discover I'm a
Scary to think
fraud.
about that, but you're absolutely
Um,
right.
and so I think Donald Trump's sort of chaos and capricious nature allows people are willing to believe something weird or crazy that a rando
Yeah.
tweets because that's who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump has incentivized that or encouraged that sort of response. But look, yeah, so Donald Trump right now and his team are trying, they're selling two, I think, mutually exclusive arguments, right?
Yeah.
So one argument says that America has been, getting screwed all these years and that we need to reindustrialize America. And so these tariffs are being put in place for a pretty logical reason, because we need to build more factories in Ohio and here in
Yeah.
America, and it's going to be a sacrifice. Uh, Nobody said it was going to be easy. We didn't get into this
Yeah.
mess overnight. That's one theory, right? The other theory, which is being advanced by some Trump supporters,
Yeah.
is this, and even Eric Trump, by the way, not just random MAGA supporters, but
Yeah.
Donald Trump's own son is saying, my
Yeah.
dad is the greatest, negotiator in the world, and he's just doing this to get these other countries to drop their tariffs. And
Yeah.
so, which is it? It can't
Which
be
is it? It
both.
can't be
It
both.
can't be
It
both.
can't be both. Exactly right. And this is where I've seen them do this time and again. They did this around Charlottesville, where you have multiple people dancing on the head of the pin, trying to come up with multiple explanations for Trump's erratic behavior. And you're seeing the exact same thing play out right now. And one of the things that I mean, it's so sad that he's maybe not so serious about reindustrializing America, because places like West Virginia, where you are, could certainly use that. But a couple of things to put the day's news to the side, Matt, and feel free if you want to comment on what we just talked about, please feel free. But two things I want to get to. One is the state of the Republican Party, because that's kind of your wheelhouse. The second thing is, people are very concerned in this country right now that we are heading down the road towards dictatorship. And I wonder how much you think that that is a real possibility, because it is a concern of mine. And when you can just, sweep people up off the streets because of legal status or whatever and send them off to this crazy ass prison in El Salvador, that's some frightening shit. I mean, that shit should not be going on.
Yeah.
That is weird dictator shit. And so that let's talk about the Republican stuff in a second. But the weird dictatorship, I gotta ask you about, because
Hmm.
it is on my mind. I wonder what you think.
I'm greatly concerned, Jim. I mean, so
Yeah.
look, maybe I don't want to sound hysterical.
I don't
Um,
either. I don't either. Yeah.
So maybe it's a 10% chance, right? If you were going to get on a plane tomorrow and I
Yeah.
told you there's a 10% chance it's going to crash, how comfortable would you be? You
Wouldn't
would
get on it.
not. You would not get on that
I
flight,
would
right?
not do that. Yeah.
And so, look, I think that what do we know about Donald Trump? First of all, we know he's the only person that I know of who's ever tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power, who
Yep.
literally tried to stay on, try to overturn a free and fair election, right? Secondly, we know he is right now essentially they are kidnapping people, throwing them on planes and shipping them off to a country they've never been into, essentially a gulag. This one
Yeah.
guy who's a gay hairdresser from Venezuela, as far as I know, his only crime is knowing how to mix foundation, or possibly
Unreal.
having some gang tattoos that like were, I don't know, Michael Jordan or something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not a good, maybe it's a fashion faux pas, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth being disappeared. And we may never get him back. It's
Yeah.
hard to say. Now,
Yeah.
could he do that to you or me? Like, luckily, I think you will be gone first, Jim. I will be lower on the list. But it's not
Yeah.
like he called us enemies of the people. He said we
Yeah.
were human scum. So what do you do with enemies of the people? What do you do with human scum?
Yeah.
I'm reading a book right now. I literally had to quit reading this book because it was driving me a little paranoid. It's a book that's coming out, and it's by
Yeah.
a well-known historian, and the whole thing's a subtweet of Trump. Donald Trump's name is not mentioned, but it's about Nazi Germany. And it's basically a checklist of how you take over a country. And like one of the chapters is called Us versus Them. One of the
Yeah.
chapters is called Co opting the Media. And it
Yeah.
is this, it's Donald Trump is going down the list of what you would do if you were going to try to pull something like this off. And you have a, you
Yeah.
know, what was it called? The fire where you create an emergency and you have to impose martial law, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the danger, right? Now, here's the one: if there's a good thing about the economy crashing right now and about what's happening, it's that I think it makes it dramatically less likely that Trump could pull this off.
Because
If he
we're all
becomes
bracing for it. We're all paying attention to it. We're all guarding against. Well, we're not all doing that, but many of us are guarding against it.
And if public
Um,
opinion really drops, if his public opinion drops in a major way, and if the midterms are disastrous for him, I think it lessens the likelihood he can pull it off.
yeah. Well, but it concerns me a great deal because I mean, the last time he left office, I was at Joint Base Andrews with him. I was in the pool that day, and they hadn't cooked up the idea at that point of kicking people out of the pool. They took away my press pass, but didn't start kicking people out of the pool. And my only thought that day was, my God, I hope he just gets on that damn plane. We have no guarantee of that this next time around. And he may be a lame duck president. He may have a Democratic Congress, but he'll have, some of the trappings and some of the powers of the presidency at his disposal. And he can cause a crisis like anybody,
Yeah.
like nobody else. And that's the thing that concerns me a great deal. And Matt, I guess one of the things we, since you mentioned coming from, Tucker Carlson world and Daily Caller world, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because of this. I hear this from time to time. Jim, you should have a Republican on from every time to time. I'm like, I do. I just happen to have Republicans on who don't like Donald Trump.
Right.
So
Yeah.
sue me.
Yeah.
Screw
And
you.
let me just say, Jim, in fairness, because I have a podcast too and all that, not nearly as big
Yeah.
as yours, but I got one. Um,
Yeah.
I you can't in this day and age, you cannot have a MAGA Trump Republican on as a guest, really, because they're not going to be intellectually honest.
Yeah.
It would be
I have that.
it would be
Exactly.
utterly pointless. So I love diversity and I love
I'm
talking
with
to
you.
people where I disagree, but that is a waste of your time and my time. I don't
It's
do
a
it.
waste of time, and if I could do it and have a reasonable, rational discussion with somebody without it going off the rails and trying to score points for the dear leader, performing for the audience of one, they're all trained like monkeys to do this, and it just drives me absolutely insane. But it just brings me to this very sad reality, Matt, and that is that the party of Reagan, the party of Lincoln, the party of Teddy Roosevelt, party of Dwight Eisenhower is just it's just a mess right now, and they're
Yeah.
not standing up to him.
I totally agree. Look, I believe in
Yeah,
permanence, and I believe that the ideas of whether you go back to Edmund Burke or you go back to Ronald Reagan, these conservative ideas stand the test of time. And
yeah,
if character mattered once upon a time, then character still matters. If
yeah,
free markets used to matter and used to be a smart idea. I believe nothing has changed to that degree.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes, yes, there may be, maybe with China. I would be open to the idea that we
Yeah.
should maybe be careful that we can still
But
produce
li- I
things in
mean,
America.
but liberalism can work too. Progressivism can work too. Social Security is not perfect, but hell, can you imagine a United States without Social Security? Medicare works. Lots of problems, sure, with Medicare, of course, but it works. You don't have, as LBJ used to say, you don't have a lot of senior citizens on their deathbed with a stack of medical bills,
Yeah.
and so it's the going back and forth between the two parties that is just kind of kept this country in good stead. But if, as I've talked about this so many times on the show, if one country is pro democracy and another one is not, that's we're not talking about Republican
Yeah.
Democrat anymore.
Totally. Look, I'd love to get back to the days where you and I can disagree over, entitlement reform or something.
Exactly. Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but speaking of entitlement reform, I think that here we get into what is conservatism? It's a semantic argument.
Yeah.
Like I read a column for the LA Times, and they have this AI thing that comes in after you write a column, and it sort of goes through and like. Critics would say this, and it gives the
Yeah.
reader some context. And my latest column they described as being center left, which
Interesting.
but I think their definition
You
of
lefty,
conservative,
Matt
yeah,
Lewis.
but I think the
Matt Lewis
problem
of
is
West
it's,
Virginia,
I
resident
think it's a
progressive.
semantic problem where if you're not pro-Trump, that means you're
Yeah.
the left, and so to me,
I've heard that
conservatives.
many times myself. Not to interrupt, but yeah.
Conservatives conserving the good things about sort of Western civilization, liberal
Yeah.
democracy. So in some cases, it's conserving liberalism that has
Yeah.
worked, is what in my version of conservatism is. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of what MAGA is frankly radical.
Yeah.
It's not trying to conserve the institutions that you and I believe in. It's trying to burn them down. That's radical. That's not
Yeah.
conservative.
Well, Matt, it's great to talk to you. Let's keep doing this, and I'll come on your show and we can talk about entitlement reform or whatever the hell you want to talk about. But I,
Let's do
I
it.
forgot that you live in West Virginia, and I love the fact that that we have that aspect of that conversation too to get to at some point, because that's the thing that people I think have lost sight of in places like West Virginia, and maybe part of it is because of the media they consume and so on. But this idea that because of the part of the country that you live in, that there are certain Americans who are against you and so on, or enemies and so on. That's the thing that upsets me the most. And I know you come from the same vantage point. So
Yep.
great to talk to you. Great to catch up.
Likewise. Thanks, Jim.
All
Thanks for
right,
having me.
let's do it again soon. See you, Matt Lewis, everybody. Really appreciate his time. And I was so being honest about it. I don't like to describe myself as earnest. It sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but I was trying to be earnest and honest, and saying to Matt that it meant a lot to me to have him on this show, because he has for so many years come from a conservative Republican point of view. And you can be a conservative Republican and oppose Donald Trump. Just because you oppose Donald Trump doesn't mean you're this way or that way or any other way. So my thanks to Matt Lewis, and of course my thanks to Michael Cohen. I always love the Michael Mondays. But I want to get a couple quick things in before I go. From the Dear Leader files, the great Tom Sherwood. For those of you who are outside the Washington, D.C. area, we have a great local reporter here named Tom Sherwood. He was with Channel 4 for many, many years. Now he's with the Washington City paper. He reports Trump may get the military parade in D.C. he has always wanted. This is from Tom. According to a D.C. source with knowledge of the plan that's still being developed, Trump has commandeered Saturday, June 14th, the 250th anniversary of the Army, and as it happens, Trump's 79th birthday. Yes, he's going to turn 79, for those of you who are upset that Biden was old, for his military parade. It would stretch almost 4 miles from the Pentagon in Arlington to the White House, according to the source, who stressed that local officials are just learning of it. Wow. Can you imagine Donald Trump taking the economy down the tubes and then holding a military parade for himself? As somebody who's covered Donald Trump for a long, long time, yes, I can totally imagine that happening. It is truly the emperor with no clothes. And as I wrote in my Substack over the weekend, somebody explained to the dear leader that the emperor has no clothes before we all lose our shirts. My thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. We got up to what, 7.6, 7,600 viewers. That's great for a Monday. Always appreciate everybody tuning in, and really appreciate folks tuning in around the world. I've seen in the chat comments that there are people tuning in London and so many other places. And I want to give a quick shout out to my friends in Norway, the beautiful people of Norway. Thank you so much for hosting me this past weekend. Christopher and all the wonderful people at Scoop, SKUP. That is an organization that presents awards to Norwegian journalists. They were kind enough to invite me out to Oslo, and a little town outside of Oslo called Tunsberg. It has an O with a line through it. That's one of my favorite things about foreign languages. You have things like O's with lines through it. Anyway, they were lovely hosts. Could not be more happy, more satisfied with that trip. It reinvigorated me in terms of watching what journalists do in other parts of the world. So many extraordinary journalists in so many different countries exercising their rights as journalists to try to bring the truth to the people. And that was just a fantastic. And so, if you get a chance, I did a discussion with some of the folks out there. That is also on my Substack. You can catch up on that Substack there. Also, if you want to listen to it in your car, I think it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on YouTube, and so on, all these different places to catch up. But great to see you guys, as always, on this Monday. Let's hope that tomorrow is a better day. My goodness, we could use that. But in the meantime, still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good evening, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.